Hello, family, and welcome to another episode of Role Model Experts Cafe. I'm your host, Dr. L, and today with me I have Mr. Michael Hession. Did I say that correctly, Mike?
Yes, you did, Dr. L. Thank you. Nice to be
Great.
here.
Awesome. Now, I've had a chance to see Michael in networking events, and I think his topic is really important and relevant. And I wanted to bring him onto the Experts Cafe for our audience members to hear more about it. So, thank you guys for tuning in and listening. And thank you, Michael, for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here. Michael, can you tell us a little bit more about what you do and how you got involved in doing it in the first place?
Sure. So I am an authorized practitioner of something called infinite banking concepts. And that is simply an approach to wealth management, cash flow management that has been around for a long time. It was kind of forgotten about and reintroduced about 20 years ago or so, using a particular type of life insurance product as the tool to manage and grow your money with no stock market risk. So that's what it is. And so I'm also a licensed professional in the life insurance industry. And I kind of came to this. I have my own business for 16 years in the boating industry by myself. I owned my own job really. I didn't. It was a business, but I wasn't had no leverage or anything. And later, I just shut it down. There was really nothing to sell. It was my handiwork. And then I learned about leverage, and my wife and I had rental properties, and I learned how to trade in the markets, the stock market options, and that kind of thing. And I got to see the sort of the underside, the underbelly of that, and kind of how it can really burn people. And so I got into the insurance business and learned about how these types of life insurance policies are just wonderful. And they have no market volatility exposure at all. So it was sort of a journey through ups and downs, going through bankruptcy back in 2008 with my wife. And I just want to share these safe products that are just wonderful. And my little tagline is financial peace of mind. That's what I'm all about. And you can actually have that if you get your things set up the right way. So that's what I'm all about.
Right. So, Michael, it's really funny that we're having this discussion today because on my drive to work today, I was hearing on the radio they're talking about the lottery basically, and how some people really consider that as investing in themselves in a comical way, considering the
Oh,
odds. And of course, there are better options, but I guess I would say that's a place to start. If that you have to start somewhere, yes, you can invest in yourself by putting a dollar in the lottery. But the reality is that there are things that can give you a better return. There are also possibilities for you to invest in yourself and make sure that your money is stays within your family. Most people don't realize this. I mean, when you look at, I don't want to divert our conversation, but when you look at lottery and how much money goes into that industry, if imagine if that was a social venue that would improve life for
yeah,
citizens around the country, right?
yeah, yeah.
That would eliminate so many of our social problems of the very people who play the lottery, basically, by
And that's
simply,
part of the problem too, is that then the cities and states will say, well, it's bringing in tax revenue. Well, yeah, but it's sort of like Wall Street talking about the benefits of average rates of return. They have to put a spin on it to make it sound better than it really is. So the
right,
lottery is the similar kind of thing. Yes, it
right,
does create tax revenue, but you'd be better off learning how money works. And
right,
you know this, no one teaches you really in
right.
school how to handle your money, how to grow it. So it's sort of this like a vacuum. Then all these professionals come in, and I submit that if you learn how it works, you really don't have to have like a financial planner. If
Right.
you learn how to, and this whole thing is about becoming and acting like a banker
Right.
by using and incorporating infinite banking concepts.
And that's a very important fact because when it comes to a lot of people, they only look at the cost mentality of finances, right? How much is this product going to cost me, right? But the reality is that when you look at it, despite the cost, most people money kind of runs through their fingers and they lose it left and right on a daily basis, not knowing exactly how they're losing it. So tell us a little bit more about what you do and why this would be something that should be on every parent's radar, basically.
Well, I practice what I preach, and when I first learned about this approach, I was working for a different insurance company that offered something kind of similar, and I learned about how life there's so much more to life insurance than what most people think about. Kind of like what you just said. Most people think spend the least amount of money on it as possible to get the highest death benefit because it's not going to help me anyways. It's just for my loved ones. And when you learn how life insurance really works, it's the flip side of that. Um, but with this prior company, I couldn't do really infinite banking. I learned about it through a podcast 10 years ago or so. I left the company I was with because I couldn't do that. And I got my first policy between my wife and I and my children, grown children. We have about 9 different policies. They're all part of our system. And this is like really critical for families on multiple levels, I believe. So the policies that I have with my daughters, we own them. They're part of our cash flow system. Eventually, I can hand ownership of them to them, and they'll have this money growing tax free. It's all tax free growth inside of these things,
Right.
and they can name their own beneficiary. But and for the time being, it's part of our system, and especially for parents with young children, you're thinking about college. They have those government programs, which are great, I guess, but they're any kind of government program, whether it's a 401k or those college funding, there are limitations, and you have to do certain things. And what happens if the kid doesn't want to go to school? They leave. My youngest daughter, she was done with school after high school. She traveled. Had I had one of those government programs, we would have been like, what can we do with it? You can't do anything other than what they tell you. So people with younger children can start these policies for their kids. By the time they become college age, it can become a great college educational funding vehicle or not, depending on what's going on at the time. And another cool thing too is if you're looking for college, financing, a loan, they can't look at a whole life policy as an asset. So you could qualify for some help and have this cash value rich policy that you don't have to show it as part of your asset. So, there's so many advantages to it.
Right. Absolutely.
And you can create intergenerational wealth, which I
Right.
think is huge. Because when you think of that term, you think of the Rockefellers or the Rothschilds, but regular people can do that too.
Absolutely.
You know,
Actually, I mean, I, as a physician, deal a lot with nutrition, for instance, and people having discipline about their food and educating themselves about it is an important part of it. Sure, you can go ahead and turn the reins to somebody else and say, here, cook me a meal and deliver it to my door. But the reality is, if you are not well versed on how you want your diet to be and what you want to go into your body and when you want it to go into your body, sooner or later, as soon as circumstances change, because you don't have that discipline, it falls apart. And then you go on these yo-yo diets basically as a result of that, right? So finances is kind of the same thing. You need to have this discipline. And I think one of the things that is really neat about the product that you're talking about is actually it forces you to not only have discipline, but also discover where your weaknesses are in managing your finances, where your money is going, and going, sitting down with your kids and really going through that process. You can literally educate them on how to manage finances and pass down this generational wealth as you were talking about. So that's
absolutely.
where I was going with all
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
And it's not hard. It's just, but it's, think of anything of importance, like you going through to get your, you probably have multiple degrees. There's a process to master something, and it's true with money as well, but it's
Right.
worth it.
Right.
Otherwise you just hand it over to somebody and hope for the best. Who knows? There's no reason why this country couldn't go through a 20-year bear market. You don't know. There's no way of knowing. Yes, you can look at historical numbers and say that hasn't happened, but there are no guarantees when you have your money tied in the stock market.
Right.
So
Well,
yeah, you can learn it and you can do it. I like to think of it as that old parable about teaching a person to fish rather than just providing the fish.
right.
So I
Exactly.
teach my clients how to do this, ongoingly, and then eventually step them, you know how to do this, do it, and teach your kids too.
Exactly. And when you know exactly how much funds you have, you can better assess what kind of risk you want to take as well.
Yep.
Some people get things involved and just shift everything around, not knowing that that's their entire savings. And then if it goes south,
Yeah.
then they're there wondering what happened to their retirement or their quality of life. So we want to make sure that we take risks that are measured, calculated, that is going to allow us to go to sleep at night soundly. Those are all of those things basically, and this is a good tool for that.
Yeah.
Now, what who would be a good candidate for this, and what are some of the challenges that you see when people come to you looking for what you do? What are the typical challenges that you have seen people face when they're coming to you?
Well, there are certain minimum amounts that one needs to be able to effectively do this. So I will have people who love the concept. They'll read. Nelson Nash is the one who reintroduced this and
Right.
wrote the book Becoming Your Own Banker. Um, he so people will read up on it. They get really excited about it. And they'll come to me, and they just won't have the revenue to really get started. So sometimes there are ways you can get something set up to sort of set it up for if they are going to bring in some more money later. I'll have some younger clients who don't really have a lot, but they love the concept, and they know that they'll be earning more revenue down the line. So I can get them started on what's called a term policy, which is very inexpensive, but you can convert it over to a whole life infinite banking policy down the road.
Oh, I didn't
So
know that.
yeah, I do that quite a lot, especially with younger folks, because it can be very inexpensive. And you can just back, and you don't have to go through underwriting again. So even if, these are all fully, medically underwritten. Even if someone got really sick, if they have the term in place, they can convert it over, no questions asked.
Very
So
cool.
that's one of the biggest issues. I think you have to think about, it's a mindset. It's about paying yourself first. I have clients who they'll have their taxes taken out, then they have a job, and I'll encourage them, stop doing that. Have them give you your full paycheck, and then you pay yourself first, and then you pay the taxes later. There's just a shifting it to paying yourself first, then you take care of Uncle Sam. And you can do that.
Right.
By doing that, you can also set things up. So that's one of the finding the minimum, and then if people don't health qualify, if they're uninsurable, that can be a problem as well. So those are the two main things that I've seen.
Got it. Okay, so when people start on this journey, naturally they got to do things a little bit different than they have been in order to get different results.
Yes.
So, what are some of the tips? I know you just gave a tip about paying yourself first, but what are some of the other tips that if somebody's watching this right afterwards, they can actually go ahead
Mhm.
and implement and hopefully be in a better situation financially?
Not to be too self-serving, I think if you read up on it a little bit, what infinite banking concepts is, I've got an ebook that is sort of my own version of it's only 18 pages. One of the most critical things is just to get you thinking differently. The banking business, as much as many of us hate the banks or just don't like the fact of how much power they have, it's a great business model. They have money, they lend it out at interest, and it comes back to them. If you could do that for yourself, it just magic starts to happen, and you start losing the outflow of money to outside lenders, and you keep it in your own system. I like to think of it as everybody has their own economy. You think of the broader economy, but every individual, every family, every business has its own economic system where money comes and goes. And if you can start to control it and flow it through your own system, it just magic happens. So I would encourage people just to start to read it and start to get their brains thinking differently. That's so critical, because if they won't do it, I've had people come to me, and if they aren't willing to take it on, it's not worth it. I'll say, you're better off just going to a financial advisor, giving them your money and paying a fee, and hope for the best.
Right.
You have to be
Yeah.
willing to think outside the box and want to take it on.
Yeah, I in my experience and reading on history, it seems like there are three institutions that, regardless of cycles and whatnot, they always seem to come out the other side. One of them is banking, the other one is insurance, and the last one, of course, is government. And I say, if you can't beat them, join them, right? So,
Yeah, learn what they're doing, right? You learn, and,
exactly.
and you can actually implement it, using these policies, set up the right way, because there's a very particular way to set them up. So that's what I would encourage people to do. If they're interested, just start to learn about it. And then, they can contact me. I'm happy to help. That's one of the biggest things. It's a shift and looking at how you manage your money and grow it. So.
Right. Very cool. So, Michael, how can people find out more about some of the products that you are talking about? Also, if you have content that they could read up on and educate themselves, what are some of the things that they can connect with you?
Yeah, probably the best way is just to go to my website, which is Michael R. Hession, Michael middle initial R, Hession.com. When you go there, a pop up will come and you can order the ebook. I've got articles in there. You can set up a discovery call. And I also, I don't, I have a wealth quiz too, which is kind of fun that I think I need to talk to my web guys. It's supposed to pop up in there too, where you can take a quiz and sort of see where you are in
Cool.
in your money situation as it pertains to infinite banking. So that's a great way. Just go to the website and you can set up a meeting with me or a phone call, whatever works.
Wow. Okay.
Read the ebook, and that's probably the best way.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, guys, I'll make sure that the link is also in the description box. So take the opportunity. He apparently has a lot of gifts and a lot of content and information that you can utilize in educating yourselves and making better choices, not only for yourselves, but for your family and for your generational wealth for your children as well. So take a look at that, connect, look for support, teach your kids that it's okay to not have all the answers. It's okay to reach out, and it's important for us to teach them how to connect. So do that as well. And if you haven't already done so, make sure you click subscribe so you get information on all the experts that come here, share their expertise, share their gifts with us, and get notified of those. Michael, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here. Any final words for our audience members before we finish?
Yeah, I just thought of something that's really critical. Most of us have some debt. This is a great way to turn debt into wealth. Utilizing this system, you can turn your debt into wealth, and it's rather than just paying off your debt. So it's yeah. So if look into it, reach out, and the other thing too is just in my journey, I've learned when you're sort of in this ether of alternative approaches to looking at money, you learn other things about things you can do with mortgages that most people don't have a clue about.
Right.
So, I've learned a lot over the years, and I'm happy to share whatever I've learned. So,
Yeah, it's truly amazing how fast it builds up. And you don't think about it up front, but give it a year or two and you find out that had you just been saving, you would have never gone to where you are in a very short amount of time. So I know that I have funded education with it before. I have paid down debt with it before. So absolutely. So thank you
awesome.
for doing what you do. And we look forward to seeing you guys in future as well. Cheers.
Thank you.